Hi everyone, my name is Rin Longmaid. I'm a restaurant broker and consultant at Santa Rosa Business and Commercial in Sonoma County, California, and I'm the founder and host of this series, Deep Dish Live, where we explore the business of restaurants for restaurateurs, restaurant buyers and sellers, and the restaurant curious. Welcome to episode 6, where I'll be discussing selling your restaurant, what every restaurant owner should know. Deep Dish streams semi-monthly, actually now streaming once monthly, and each episode runs about 30 minutes long, and we come to you streaming from one of your favorite San Francisco Bay Area restaurants. Today, we're at Grata Italian Eatery in Downtown Windsor, California, and soon I'll be joined by one of the owners, Eric Foster, who will be walking us through the restaurant and talking about some of the current restaurant offerings. But first, I'd like to introduce you to my support team. Joining me remotely is Holly Hansen from Holly Hansen Media Productions. She is posting things in the chat box for me or responding so I don't have to split my attention. Hi, Holly. And behind the camera is Ed Troxel. He's a live media consultant, and he works with businesses to help promote their businesses through live media. Holly and Ed helped me launch this series, so I'm completely indebted to them. Hi, Ed.
Hey.
He's ready to say hi today. Let's see, where am I? If you watched episode 5, we live streamed from Roma's restaurant in San Francisco, and we offered a gift card to anybody who posted during that feed or anytime between that time last month and today. And we'll be announcing that gift card winner of $100 later in the episode. And if you want an opportunity to win a gift card today from Grata Restaurant, Grata has also generously matched my contribution. So this is a $100 gift card to Grata Restaurant. And if you like and post a comment on this feed, either right now while we're live or anytime between now and the next time I broadcast, which will be on Wednesday, May 19th at Stockholm Restaurant in Petaluma, you're automatically entered for a chance to win, and winners are selected randomly. So these are just great ways that I like to help promote the restaurants, and then I like to thank you for supporting me and my web series. So today we're safe distance streaming from the beautiful and somewhat miraculous Grata Italian Eatery. Eric and Christina launched this restaurant midway through COVID, and they've been wildly successful ever since and garnered a lot of community support. So I'm actually going to get up and introduce you to Eric. Hi, Eric.
Hello, good to see you.
This is Eric Foster. He's the chef and founder. Hang on.
Yeah.
Okay, we're back.
We're good. So yeah, like I said, we've only been able to seat inside for about a month now. This is kind of new, so we've just been kind of progressing the inside concept. We haven't been able to utilize the bar yet, but we've kind of put some accents on it, made it look nice and fun and unique.
You guys added this, right?
Yeah, we added this front paneling. We used a lot of what was already here. Just kind of moved in and made it our own. Did a lot of upgrades and just decorations that Christina, did some research and had fun with. And like I said, we're moving along with the decor.
One of the cool legacies of this restaurant, this was custom-made bar, and these leaves were pressed. They're local Pinot Noir grape leaves that were pressed into the bar.
So right this way. This is our indoor dining space. As you can see, it's kind of a narrow banquette situation. Kitchen behind the barn door over there.
Oh, that's a great addition too.
Yeah, we put that barn door up.
And then people access the outside seating through the restaurant?
Through this way, yes. There's 2 ways to get there. On the way out, we see the manja room, which we call this. This is kind of our large party. People have birthdays and get-togethers. We see up to about 14 people. Yeah, it's a nice big family get-together table. And this was artwork that was donated when we first opened by the town of Windsor. We were one of the lucky restaurants to get some artwork to show their support.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Painted by Catherine Daly, local artist.
Great. Did you hear Christina was chiming in?
This is painted by Catherine Daly, a local artist.
And then to the outside. This was a lot of our focus originally because this was, the only thing we could utilize at the time. We were able to expand the outdoor patio. The town of Windsor allowed us to utilize some of the sidewalk and open up so we could do more business and accommodate more people, and it's worked out great. We got the covered patio built, so we're good for every situation that may come at us.
So how many people can you sit out here right
Right
now?
now we're doing about 40.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, give or take, depending on party size.
And just so you guys know, you at home or at your office, Grata will still have an outside patio post-COVID. When the city makes them retract, if they do make you retract it back off, there's still a beautiful outside patio here.
Right. Our expansion is allowed till the end of this year at least, so.
Great.
Yeah, we're excited about that.
This is really nice too.
Yeah. A lot of heaters, so.
Well, thank you, Eric.
Yeah,
I'm going to
my
bring you
pleasure.
back out. Eric and Christina are going to join us again at the end of the episode to introduce us to some of their signature dishes. Thanks, you guys. Okay, so follow me back in. We're going to get back to my seat. Thanks so much for your time. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. I'm a licensed restaurant broker. I offer up a whole suite of services to my clients. I'm licensed to work in Napa, Sonoma, and Marin County, actually all over the state of California. I've worked as far north as Crescent City, as far south as Hollywood. I've never worked in San Diego, but I know there's a restaurant waiting for me in San Diego. As far east as Truckee. Basically, I can work with clients all over the state. I've had a long and varied restaurant career. I started as a dishwasher in the kitchen at Tassajara Zen Mountain Center, and I moved to San Francisco, worked my way up through a bunch of commercial kitchens, up the brigade, lunch line, dinner line. I ultimately ended up becoming a personal chef to a celebrity, and then I was headhunted by Amy's Kitchen in Sonoma County. I moved up to Sonoma County and ended up opening my own restaurant, which I'll talk a little bit about in the series today. And then I went to school, I got an MBA, and I became a professor at the Culinary Institute of America out of Greystone. If you want to know more about me or the services that I provide, you can find them on my website, and Holly will post that in the feed so you can access that easily. So today, I'm discussing, my topic is selling your restaurant, what every restaurant owner should know. So this episode is perfect for both sellers who are thinking about selling restaurant operators who are thinking about selling, and restaurant operators who have never thought about selling. And why should restaurant operators who have never thought about selling pay attention to this? There's really important information to know when the day comes that you are ready, because it's a process. Knowing what your restaurant is worth and knowing what the sales process is like is super important, and I have two examples of this. The first one comes from this couple who came to our office at Santa Rosa Business and Commercial after 20 years of successful restaurant operations, and they were ready to retire. And they came to us, and they'd been working with their CPA, and they had come up with this business price of $700,000. And when I heard that, I was like, whoa. If any of you who keep an eye on Biz Buy Sell or BizBin or Businesses for Sale, you know that the cluster of restaurant sales, they kind of cluster around $150,000 up to about $350,000, $400,000. That's the bulk. There's certainly restaurants that sell for less, and there's restaurants that sell for more, but generally, if you're a 49-seat restaurant, 49 capacity restaurant, and you have a beer and wine license, and you're a full service, your cash flow is going to support a list price around what I just said. So 700, I'm like, whoa, they must make $350,000 a year to support a list price of 700. So we collected their 3 years of their tax returns, their profit loss statement, and their lease. And when we figured out their weighted average of cash flow, their restaurant, basically the most probable selling price for their restaurant was about $250,000, which is a lot lower than $700,000. So that was a shock to them. We were in the unenviable position of giving that information to the seller. What ended up happening is we took the listing, we took it for less than $7, but more than $250. We took it for probably around $500,000, which was still quite a bit more than we calculate it would be worth on the open market. And what happened was it went up on all the advertising, and we attracted buyers. And when the buyers saw their summary of the last 3 years and their cash flow, it didn't match the purchase price. Buyers are savvy. They know just like I'm trying to get, to alert sellers that this is how restaurants are valued. I have several episodes where I touch on this. So the restaurant didn't sell, and the price was lowered, the price was lowered, the price was lowered, and then boom, COVID hit. And the operators were done. They were ready to retire, so they shuttered their business, and now that business is a lease opportunity. It's not a business opportunity, and that's a really sad tale for me. It's so important for restaurants to get their pricing right. So the next story I want to tell you is my own personal story. When I was younger, I opened my restaurant, and about 6 months after I opened, I got pregnant. So I was operating a restaurant where I was a sole proprietor. Well, I had a partner, but she lived remotely, but she was my investor. So the bulk of the work landed on me. I was pregnant. I had my child. I operated the restaurant. And what had happened was I was trained as a fine dining chef, and I was operating, I didn't want to own a fine dining restaurant, but I only knew how to do fine dining food. So the cost point per client and what it took me to prepare that food, there was a great discrepancy, and I filled that discrepancy with my labor. So I was tied to the restaurant in a way that exhausted me. So about 2.5 years in, I was done. And I contacted my broker and said, I'm ready to sell. And he said, Rin, you haven't been operating for 3 years, so it's going to be hard to fetch a good price. So there's a little piece of information. You need to be operating for about 3 years to fetch the best price on the open market. There's various reasons for that. One is, that's the industry standard for if a restaurant's going to fail, it's going to fail in the first 3 years. And that's even a low, 5 years is gold, but 3 years is okay. So, but he said, if you were to sell, this is what you would make. So I looked at that number, and I knew I needed that debt to service that debt, and there was a certain amount of money I wanted to walk away with, and I'm like, I can't do it. So I buckled down, and I worked in that restaurant for another 2.5 years. And I kept an eye on my cash flow went up, my debt service went down, and boom, the minute that I could sell it and pull the money I wanted out of it so I could go do something else, I sold it with that broker with the price that he recommended, and it didn't take very long to sell the restaurant. I was fortunate. So there's two things that are embedded in these examples that I'm giving today. One is it's very important to list your restaurant properly, and it's very important to have that in the back of your mind. Like, if this is my cash flow, 2 times that cash flow is what my restaurant will sell for. There are exceptions, but those exceptions are rare. The other, which is embedded in these two stories, is the sales process is exactly that. It's a process. And I'm just giving you like the quick I'm going to go into it a little bit more, but once a buyer and seller get into contract, or even once I'll say this. Once a business is listed for sale with a broker, the industry average for that restaurant to get into contract with a qualified buyer is 8 months. It can happen shorter, it can happen longer. That's the average. It's very different from the housing market. It's much more like dating, quite frankly, because the facility has to match the buyer's vision. It has to have, the furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and the hood, and the grease trap. It's got to have the essential qualities that are going to support the buyer's menu and concept, and then also it has to reach this buyer's market. Now, sometimes it's different. This happened for me, and it happens for other buyers, that the buyer is nimble enough to find the location they like, and then be able to overlay a concept that they know will work at that location. For me, when I found my restaurant, it had an open kitchen. That was paramount for me. I wanted an open kitchen because I knew I was going to be back there slinging hash all day, so I wanted to be able to communicate with my clients and my staff while I was working. So let's see. Do I want to take a little break? Let's take a small break. Let me see if Holly has texted me. Yes, we'll text. I'll look on Facebook. I don't see anything yet. So if you're just joining me, this is Deep Dish Live, episode 6. Deep Dish Live is a Facebook series that discusses the business of restaurants for restaurateurs, restaurant buyers and sellers, and the restaurant curious. We stream monthly for about 30 minutes out of one of your favorite restaurants, San Francisco Bay Area restaurants. Today we're at Grata Italian Eatery, brand new, fabulous restaurant in Downtown Windsor. One thing that you need to know is today we'll be saying who the winner is of the Roma gift card, which is where we streamed live about a month ago out of San Francisco. We'll be telling who the winner of that gift card is. And then today, if you'd like the opportunity to win a gift card from Grata, the restaurant we're in today, please like and post a comment on this live feed or anytime between now and a month, May 19th, where I'll be live streaming from Stockholm Restaurant in Petaluma. So let's see, more about selling your restaurant. So I'm going to go macro now. So the process of selling a restaurant, I'm going to talk about the details, and I'll drop into I'll expand on a couple of topics. Topics I'm going to expand on are confidentiality, the ABC license transfer process, and the health department. I might talk about something else, but those are going to be 3 that I'm going to talk about. So you might have noticed what has to happen before you being the seller of a restaurant, the owner or operator of a restaurant, before you even get into a contract with a broker, you're handing over your financials, a lease, tax returns, profit loss statement, because that broker needs to figure out what the list price will be. Immediately, you know, if your broker's not asking you for those things, your broker might not be qualified to be working with you. So once the list price is determined, that's when the listing agreement is made. So what I want to say about the listing agreement, they're a year long, because remember I said it's about 8 months, the industry average, to find a buyer. You want to have that listing with that broker long enough to find a buyer. The other thing, now this is huge. This is really something that you should hear and understand. Many brokers, not the brokers in Santa Rosa Business and Commercial, they will not co-broker. And what that means is they're going to take a listing from you, the seller or owner operator, and they're not going to work with any other office in that sale, meaning they're going to be dual agent. They're going to represent the buyer and the seller. That's fine. And in most cases, we are dual agents because you have to know a lot to represent that buyer and get them through the process. And it's so much easier to act as a project manager between the 2 parties. But if you have the only person that an exclusive brokerage benefits is the broker, because they're going to be capturing the entire commission of that sale. So what happens, so here's an example. If I post a listing and a residential real estate agent brings a buyer to me, but they're not qualified, we'll talk. Like, have you ever transferred a liquor license? Have you ever gone through the health department process? They'll say no. And I'll say, why don't I give you a referral for bringing that buyer, and I'll do the deal. Great. That benefits my seller. That broadens the net of all these different buyers. It's maddening, you guys. I'll find listings online for my buyers, and the broker's response to me is, we don't co-broker. And I can almost guarantee you, the seller is back in the kitchen slinging hash, and they have no idea that their broker just said no to a potential buyer because they weren't brought by that broker. That is bad. So that might be your biggest takeaway for today. So commission for a business broker is 10% of the eventual sale price. There's a minimum. The industry standard, again, is 12 to 15%. Why is it so much? Because it takes a lot to be a business broker. There's not many of us that do it. We're uniquely qualified to do it, and trust me, we're going to earn if you have a qualified broker, we will earn every penny of that commission. What do I want to say now? So after the listing agreement is executed, the broker should come on site to the facility and work with the seller to create the list of furniture, fixtures, and equipment. And this is where I'm going to pause. What is it that you're selling? You're not a restaurant owner is not selling the real property. Most restaurant owners have a lease. So part of the sale is access to the lease, It is the furniture, fixtures, and equipment, the tables, the plants, the menu, the recipes, some training. You're not training the buyer how to cook, you're training the buyer how to execute your menu. There'll be a covenant not to compete is what they're buying. So if they're paying for all the accessories of the business, everything that is the decor of the business. If there's something in the business that you don't want included, take it off site before the business broker ever walks on site, and certainly before the buyer walks on site. Now, if you have a Robocoo that you spend a lot of money on and you're attached to it, and you need it to make your sauces, or chop your onions, or make your salsa, whatever, that Robocoo needs to stay on site. Buy a new Robocoo with the proceeds of the sale, or remove it from site, and if your concept can operate without it, fine. But so basically what I'm saying, if I come on site, I'm going to assume everything I see is included in the sale. Now there's things that are in the sale, like the hood, the Type 1 hood. That's a great asset. You don't own that as an operator, that belongs to the landlord, but that's a huge asset that's included in the sale. The buyer has access to that hood. So once the furniture, fixtures, and equipment list is put together, the broker is going to package the deal. They're going to put a profile together. They're going to put the list of furniture, fixtures, and equipment and a summary of the financials. And then they're going to post the advertising. Now, this is one thing sellers are always concerned about, and it's the confidentiality of the sale. Because they're afraid they're either going to hurt their brand and lose their customers, or they're going to lose one of their most valuable assets, and that's their employees. So it's really important now that broker and seller talk and figure out the best way to advertise the restaurant. Because let's say you're a paella restaurant operating out of Pengrove. There's some alliteration there, right? If I list paella restaurant in Pengrove, everybody's going to know what restaurant is listed for sale. I have some listings where my clients are so nervous or concerned about that sale getting out that they might, let's say they're located in Sebastopol, they don't want me to say that it's in Sebastopol, they want it to be in Sonoma County. So that protects the confidentiality of the sale. The downside of that is the buyer, when a buyer is looking on these websites or on my website, they're entering into the search field Sebastopol or Windsor or Healdsburg, and that seller listing that just says Sonoma County isn't going to pop up. So here's a takeaway for my buyers. If you're looking for a restaurant in Sonoma County in Healdsburg, go ahead and say Sonoma County, because the restaurant might actually be in Windsor. So if I had a restaurant, I might say North Sonoma County or something like that. It's a bit of a balance, how to keep the confidentiality but give enough information to attract the right buyer. So that's a bit about confidentiality. The confidentiality of the business ends with the liquor license posting. We've all seen them, right? They're either white or yellow, those posters that go in the window, and you're like, oh, that business is selling. It can mean other things, but generally it means the business is selling. So what happens is the buyer has released all their contingencies. They've gone through all their due diligence prior to that poster being posted. Once that poster is posted, the cat is out of the bag. The seller should already have their story for their clients. It's been a long run. We love you dearly. We're ready to go on to the next thing. They should have already introduced the buyer to their staff. The buyer wants to keep you on. Your jobs are secure if you're wanted here. So what happens in that due diligence period? I'm going to talk about those two things, and then I'm going to end. What happens in the due diligence period is big. The first thing that happens, once a buyer and seller are in contract, we take the buyer to the landlord. Now, sometimes my sellers will say, should I let my landlord know that I'm selling? And 9 times out of 10, we're going to say no. Some leases state in the lease that if a seller decides to sell, the landlord can immediately come back and take control of the premise. Sometimes landlords get nervous, like they're selling, that means I'm going to have to lease they'll put a for lease sign on the building. But those reasons aside, we have found at Santa Rosa Business and Commercial, the strategy, bringing a qualified buyer, like we've already vetted the buyer, they have the finances, they have the credit, they have the experience. We bring that buyer the buyer of the business to the landlord is usually happy. Like, oh my gosh, there's not going to be an interruption in my rent. And then now the tough work happens of getting the buyer, the landlord, and the seller to agree on agreeable lease terms. I'm not going to talk about that too much today, but again, qualified business broker. If you have a business broker that can bring a buyer to your business and get you in contract and then drops you, doesn't work with the landlord, doesn't work with the ABC, doesn't work with the health department, you're working with the wrong broker and it's too late because you already have that listing agreement. So these are questions you want to ask your broker before you sign the listing with them. I'm going to end on the health department. This is what you really want. You really need to hear this as a seller or a restaurant operator. When a restaurant changes hands, the buyer goes to the health department of that county and they have to get a health department site review. It's different from what happens when the inspector comes in quarterly. What happens is the health department is going to bring that facility up to code. And it can be simple and it can be gnarly. It can be, you need to install a grease trap. You need to install a new grease trap. You're operating with a type 1 hood that's no longer, it's no longer working, or it's too short, or there's a lot that happens, and who pays for that? It is a negotiation between the buyer, the seller, and sometimes the landlord. Sometimes not the landlord, but again, qualified business broker to take you through the process. A lot of times sellers will say, how can I prepare for selling my restaurant? If you might have noticed when I started talking about what happens in the beginning of a sale, and I said we collect the financial statements, you didn't hear me say, I come on site and take a tour of the facility. You want to know why? It doesn't matter. You guys, there's those bars that have been operating for 20 years. They might be like a ramshackle bar that's just churning out money. That bar might be, the equipment might be beat to hell. That bar is going to sell for a lot of money because it's making money. Some of my buyers, my sellers will come to me and they put in a lot of capital expenses to create a beautiful restaurant, and they haven't been able to be successful. They're not going to be able to recoup those capital expenses. That's not how a restaurant sells. The way that you recoup those capital expenses, you depreciate them over time. You have a concept that has strong cash flow, and you operate for 5 years and recoup that capital, and then you sell it for exactly how I've been describing, based on cash flow. It's a very painful conversation to have with sellers who built out a beautiful restaurant and now need to sell for whatever reason. So the health department site review, maybe I'll do a whole episode on that because I'm not giving it much time here, but I've kind of stopped the process at that hanging of the ABC poster. I'll pick up this conversation next month at Stockholm when I talk about buyers of restaurants, because that kind of enters into and I'll overlap it with some of what I've discussed today. But I'm going to end there. If you have any questions, if I talk too fast, if you couldn't hear me, turn up the volume. One of the beauties of being in a restaurant, you get all that restaurant background. Welcome to our world. You can reach out to me. I now post this series on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. You'll find me on Facebook. You can easily get a hold of me through email. You can text me. I have my own website. But I want to move over now to Eric. And they've been putting food out and some beautiful wine. Let's move over and see what Eric has for us. Hi, Eric.
Hello.
What do you got for us?
Well, we've been working hard back there. Got a couple of dishes to represent some of the courses that we have. Obviously, pasta is a big influence here. So we do have our smoked salmon carbonara, which we use Santa Rosa seafood peppered smoked salmon, so we source that locally, and it's typically your carbonara has bacon or pork to give it that smokiness, that fattiness. So we swap that out with the smoked salmon, which is also rich, smoky, peppery, but it's a little play on a traditional dish. It's a little lighter, it's fun, and like I said, it's utilizing local seafood. It has some shallots, some snap peas, and then your traditional carbonara sauce, which is an egg and Parmesan base, made with the pasta to order. One of our salads, which is seasonal dish that we put on is local asparagus salad on top of some arugula and farro, topped with shaved ricotta salata, some saba, and extra virgin olive oil, a little radish and fresh mint.
Is that a little barley or something?
Farro.
Oh, that's the farro. Got it.
Farro is the grain in there, yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
So it gives a little bit of body, and you get a lot of different textures in there. You get the freshness of the asparagus and hardiness from the farro, a little fat from the ricotta salata.
Is the farro warm?
No, it's a salad,
Okay,
chilled.
great.
So yeah,
Beautiful.
toasted, cooked, and then.
And then
served
what?
as a
This looks
salad.
like a risotto dish.
This is a risotto dish. It's one of our most popular right now. It uses, it's our surf and turf risotto. So it uses our beef short rib, which is also on the menu as an entree, red wine braised short rib, and we serve it with seared sea scallops. It's on top of our Parmesan risotto that's finished with a little bit of the braising liquid from the short rib to give it some of that hearty unctuousness in there too. And then some appetizers we got out here is a beef Carpaccio, which is a certified Angus beef strip loin that we crust with herbs, chilies, pepper, and charred on the grill really hard, but keep it rare on the inside. That way we can chill it, shave it real thin, and it's got a little bit of smokiness and texture on the outside, and the inside is very, just nice
And that's what lends that
delicate.
beautiful rim.
Yes,
Gorgeous.
served with some Italian olives and like
Capers?
caper, anchovy gremolata, so parsley, capers, anchovies, extra virgin olive oil, just to dress it a little bit. And then our bruschetta, which has changed a couple of times based on the season. Right now it's a ricotta base with some caramelized pear and endive, freshly shaved prosciutto, basil, and preserved lemon honey on top.
Oh my gosh, it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
So it looks like you have a couple wines. Is there a winemaker that you are super excited to be featuring?
Christina's been adding a few wines to the list lately based off of the indoor dining, and a lot of it has been locally sourced. Lando is a new addition to the menu.
Great.
So yeah, she's having fun with that, and a few Italian wines that we can play with, and of course a lot of local stuff that we love to showcase because it's so good around here.
So Eric, can you tell us are you open 7 days a week?
We just decided to close Tuesdays, so we're open 6 days a week from 12 to 8. Obviously, like I said, it's been a wild ride, and a lot of us have been working a lot of days, a lot of hours, so we figured in everybody's best interest, with best interest of the restaurant, we'd close 1 day a week, we can get some rest, and keep working on the concept. So Tuesdays are day off.
It looks like a beautiful place at lunch. If you needed to have a business lunch, bring a colleague here, sit in the open dining room. And just like Eric and Christina said earlier, if you want to have some festivities with your family inside your bubble, there's a beautiful community table in the back where you can celebrate a birthday or an anniversary. Eric, thank you so much
My
for having
pleasure.
me.
Thank
It's
you for
great
being
to
here.
see you.
Yes.
Christina's over there. So I want to say the winner of the gift card for Roma's Restaurant in San Francisco is Jane Morris. Jane, thank you so much for watching the episode, liking and commenting. If you guys want to win a $100 gift card to Grata, which is what Eric and Christina own, this beautiful restaurant we're inside of today, like and comment on this episode anytime between now and the next time we meet, which will be May 19th at Stockholm Restaurant in Petaluma. Until then, bye-bye.